Good afternoon, or actually good evening, CPS folks and community, to our Be Present virtual town hall here in March 21st. And right now we have a good group of approximately 21 people. So we're really looking forward to your questions. We're going to have a brief introduction and provide a few updates from the superintendent, and then we'll get to some of your questions. You can type in the moderator chat or in the Q&A chat if you have questions, and then we'll bring those to the superintendent when we're ready. This time I'm gonna turn it over to Superintendent Wright.
All right, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight. As we go through our information for our Be Present session that is virtual, I think this is our second virtual session this year, so we're looking forward to engaging with you for the next hour or so. Next slide. So a few CPS snapshots for those that have heard any of our presentations previously or even looked at our State of the Schools information. You know that Ohio is the second, we are Ohio's second largest school district. This is the first year that we are number 2 in the state. We serve 65 schools and over 6,200 employees. We have 36,000 students, grades pre-K through 12th grade. We are the largest K-12 provider of special education in Southwest Ohio. 84% of our students identify as students that receive free and reduced lunch. We currently have over 15,000 students that we transport through our bus services. 12,000 of those are CPS students, and the other almost 3,000 are non-CPS students, charter, private, and parochial schools, and we call those our non-publics. Currently, we have 9,200 students that are transported by Metro here in the city as well. Next slide. So as we got started, the opportunity really was to make sure that we were starting this journey by listening and learning, by engaging with the community, engaging with staff, getting follow-up information, and then beginning to chart the course forward. From that was born the initiative that's really become a coined phrase in the community, and that is Be Present. We wanted to use this as a call to action where we're asking that we are present across the board. We know that our staff is already present, our families are present as well, whether that's at home, whether they're volunteering at school, but we know that they're ready to support. Our community is present by partnering with us in anything that we're doing in terms of engagement. And more importantly, our students are present. And so really making sure that we are moving through that process and making sure that we are present in that process. So from that was also born our focus on getting back to the basics, and there is not anything that is more basic than the ABCs: academics, behavior, and culture. And in thinking about that, as we think about academics, what do we see in the instructional shifts? What are we seeing in classrooms, what we call pedagogy? What are we seeing in classrooms and in classroom instruction? And what do we see in student engagement? And then the B is behavior, focusing on PBIS, which is positive behavior instructional supports, restorative practices, as well as social emotional learning. And last but not least, culture, a culture of learning, a culture of respect, a culture of celebration, and a culture of support. So a few updates that are on the screen, and then from there we will begin to open up and take some questions about kind of where we are and where we're looking to go next. So the first is our March Madness. We're in the middle of March Madness. We do a different CPS Moves event each month. And so this month is the focus on shooting and dribbling from our CPS Moves. So that's been really exciting for our students to get involved in. On the 25th, we have our CPS Basketball Showcase that's coming as an update to us. And then the competition is open for the 2023 Congressional Art Competition for grades 9 through 12. And it's open now, and the due date is April the 1st. So we are encouraging our students to participate in that as well. Summer Scholars this year is for students, select students in grades 2 and 3, and 2nd and 3rd grade, and then for our 4th through 12th grade students as well. The application deadline has been updated to April the 10th. I think April the 3rd is on the slide, but we have updated to April the 10th. We're excited about a new partnership with Central State University. They will be here at Woodward High School on April the 6th doing on-the-spot scholarships for our seniors. So we're encouraging everyone to come out and support Central State University, which is the closest HBCU to us, as they will be coming out to celebrate and to recognize our students while they're also giving scholarships. We have been doing sessions with our treasurer, as well as 2 of our board members, our finance chair and an additional board member, around a finance town hall. So the next finance town hall is on April the 13th, and those have been coined as Ask Jen. Our treasurer's name is Jennifer Wagner, and so that has been very successful. It's something that really has allowed a lot of questions to be raised and to be answered. We do maintain those online as well, so you are able to go back and to look at the information that's shared from each of those sessions. All right, so what are the different things that you can do to be present? So a couple of initiatives this year that we're really excited about. We have tutors that have already started in support of our Read to Lead program, Read to Lead initiative, and it's be a Read to Lead tutor. If you use your phone to look at the QR code, you can sign up to be a tutor, and that's really what you feel comfortable with. So we're really looking for those to partner with us in the community that are doing reading for our earlier grades, or those that feel more comfortable doing more strategic tutoring that starts at about 3rd grade. And so if you have the expertise, or you're willing just to sign up to come in and read to our students, please make certain that you complete the QR code. And along the same lines, not only do we have Read to Lead, but we also have Be a Math tutor. Specifically, we're focused right now on Algebra 1, focusing with our students that most of our students that are in Algebra 1 right now are 9th graders for the most part. But if you have a particular skill set in that area and you are willing to do tutoring with our students, please feel free to sign up, and we will contact you, because we do need our students to really get the support in Algebra 1. So we did launch at the beginning of the month. We launched our key recruiting needs and the areas that we're looking for our focus. We wanted to make sure that we really capitalize and share that as CPS grows, Cincinnati grows. So not only are we recruiting teachers or staff members for CPS, we're recruiting them for Cincinnati. So currently we have some key recruiting needs. So if there are any of you that are on the call right now, or on the line, on the presentation right now, and you know those that are interested in teaching or have a background in teaching as well, we are looking for bilingual and multilingual teachers. We are looking for male teachers to support our educators of color, our math, STEM positions, English language arts, Montessori is an area, special education, physical education, and of course support staff positions, paraprofessionals, custodians, crossing guards. Even though the crossing guards are hired by the city, it is something that's really important to the work that we're doing with our students. And bus drivers. So bus drivers are hired by our contractors, but the contractors are instrumental in making sure that our students are getting to school. And we know we've had several issues, as many of you have likely followed. We've had several issues with transportation this year. So we do want to make sure that we are sharing that with everyone, so that everyone can share with everyone else. If you have more questions about the careers or the availability, eps-k12.org/career. So at this time, it's about 6:14, and we generally open up at this point for about 30 minutes or so of questions. If you will drop your questions in the chat, and our communications person is going to moderate those questions. Is that right, Mr. Sherwood?
That's correct. Yep. I'll be able to provide the questions to you.
Okay.
So our first question comes from Shannon Ryan. And again, I think this is a little bit of extension of some of the stuff we've seen at the recent board. But that the question was if there was perceived hate toward Walnut. Sure, I know where you're going to go with that. But also talking about targeting, why is it targeted the most in recent perception that it's getting the most?
Great. So thank you for posing that question. I have recently, actually since probably Sunday, I've gotten several responses or emails from Walnut and from the Walnut team. I am saying here for the first time that I am planning after spring break to have a meeting with the Walnut community because it is important that we recognize and that we know collectively, as an educational leader, it is important that all of our students are receiving the services that they need and the services that are available to them. I love all of our schools, and I could not be more proud that Walnut Hills is in our community, that not only is it the best in Ohio, but it's one of the best in the country. And so recognizing that and working with that and responding to that, I think is really important. And I'm talking historically. So it's not just about what's happening right now. There's been great work that's happened in CPS with Walnut, but Walnut has just a history of excellence. And so that's really important that we recognize. I think one of the questions that has been raised, and sometimes things get started and you're not quite sure where they come from, so you want to try to address those areas. One of the things that was raised last night is really more about kind of some changes in the way of some of the work that we're doing, not as much specific to the school. So for example, the board made a request in the Cal meeting that the presentation was done on was actually in February. So since my transition, there has been conversation. It actually started, I think I got my first correspondence on it in June of last school year. And that correspondence actually came to me and the board, and it was really around the entrance exam, the criteria for students to get into Walnut, and specifically what it looked like in terms of ethnicity. And so over the course of the last almost year, it's come up pretty often and at the board level. And so the board made some requests of me and the team. One of the things that they requested is that we do a review of the data and share that data with them. And that's what we did. So that was on the Cal meeting, committee of the whole, and it's now Student Achievement Committee of the whole, but that was on the committee of the whole meeting. That was in February. That's important because if we are looking at any changes or any recommended changes, that would have to really come from the board. So at this point, there are no changes that have been recommended to entrance requirements into Walnut or to exit requirements into Walnut. This has really been a conversation that has occurred with the board, but it occurred in public. So I would encourage all of the families that are on the line right now, or families that have reached out, I would encourage you to go online and look at that presentation because it will give a little more information about what was provided to the board at that time. I think the second opens to a larger conversation. So several that are on the call now may have been a part of our board meeting last night, or you were watching us from watching virtually. And during that board meeting, we did a presentation to talk about where we're going next and in preparation for the ESSER cliff. And there are several positions that are funded currently out of ESSER that we are no longer recommending that are funded out of ESSER. Walnut has 4 of those positions at their school. I think the most unique thing about the positions at Walnut is the positions have one title. So in our school district, they're called school community coordinators. That's how they're assigned. That's the group that they're in terms of how they're staffed. However, at the school, they're called something different. So they're called a library assistant. They're called, I think, a college director. So those positions don't exist right now. And so it's important that we have a review for those positions and for how we are able to try to do alignment with them and then begin to talk about funding for them. So I think that that's a greater conversation, not just the conversation specific to the changes that we're making, but it's those changes are being made at the board level because it's bringing positions all over the district into alignment. So the school community coordinator, if you listened to the conversation last night, or if you've heard our recent board meetings, because we talked about those positions for a period of time, you heard that was some discussion that we've had around the recommendation was last year when I transitioned to the district that those positions were going to be delimited or surplus or removed. That was one of the first decisions that was brought to me last year. And as I shared, and as I've shared very publicly, that at that time I did not feel that there had been enough notice for the staff members that were in those positions to give them time to prepare. So instead we provided notice last year, last June actually, I think when the notice was provided, and then from there we're at the point now where we were looking to move forward with surplusing those positions. The board did give support for that, and so for specifics around Walnut, it's really looking at trying to bring those positions in alignment with the positions that the district actually has, or whether or not we need to create positions there. So we've had some conversation with Principal Chambers. He is meeting with our team to really try to right size the positions and bring them in alignment with positions that are offered in the district, which also means that it may be a difference in pay depending on where the position lands. And then we have to look at next steps around funding. So if there is a feeling that I do not have love for Walnut, I love all of our schools. As a parent, I am a parent. I have 2 daughters, and my daughters graduated from a school very similar to Walnut. And so I know the acceleration opportunities. The school that my daughters graduated from, when you look at them nationally, they rank in alignment with Walnut. In some areas, a little bit higher than Walnut. In some areas, they're not quite there with Walnut. They run neck and neck with the number of national merit scholars that they have. So really understand what that relationship is like, and that all of our students deserve to know that we do support the work that they're doing. So if that's the feeling that I don't love Walnut, I don't know where that started. That is not the case, and we'll continue to work so that we clarify some of the one, misconceptions, and number 2, just misinformation that may be out there already.
Okay, thanks, Superintendent. All right, one of the things I just want to let—
long response.
It was. No, that's great. And I definitely want to let the audience know that I'm going to make sure that I ask everybody's question, but I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to at least ask one, and then I'll go back to those who have asked multiple questions. So get a little bit of equity here in the questions. The next one is, what are the current plans to implement restorative practice?
Great question. So this year we did an RFP, and that's a process that we have to use when it's the expectation that we are going to have a major contract that's supporting an area or body of work. I am a strong believer in restorative practices for everyone, restorative practices for students, restorative practices for staff members, and really making certain that we're also engaging the community around restorative practices. So that has been an area that we have completed the process in terms of the RFP. We're in the process of selecting the vendor that will offer the training for that for our staff members. And over the next 2 years, we will really begin to go really, really deeply in terms of restorative practices. I think there's a lot of information that's out about restorative practices, but it's important for us to align that conversation so that we're having one set of dialogue around the district and the practices that are truly restorative. I think the second part of that is we are in the process of our discipline team or discipline committee is in the process of review for the revisions for the Student Code of Conduct, which also is one that we want to make sure is restorative. I think one misconception is that restoration means lack of discipline, and that's not it at all. Restoration means that you're looking for ways to move forward, that you're determining how you're going to identify the harm, what caused the harm, but more importantly, how you're repairing the harm. So all of us should have an opportunity to go through restoration, even when sometimes there's harm that happens and you don't realize that it happens. So keeping ourselves flexible and open enough to make sure that we're doing that.
All right, this next question comes from Annie. She says, as a parent of Montessori kids, I'm concerned at the lack of support of Montessori classrooms. Are you and your staff Montessori accredited, and is it being considered to remove community paras? Is it even being considered to remove community in Montessori classroom?
So I think that so let me answer your first question first. I'm very familiar and have had involvement in Montessori now for almost the last 20 years. Had an opportunity in my last experience to actually set up a wall-to-wall Montessori program. So we had Montessori programs, but we did not have Montessori programs that went up through the 8th grade at that time. So we didn't focus on high school Montessori. The focus was just in the K-8 and pre-K-8 environment. So the answer to that is yes. I've had quite a bit of Montessori training, and while I don't know that I would necessarily consider myself a Montessorian, I am definitely aware and very involved and have been involved for a period of time around Montessori and the Montessori principles. And I think that they're principles really of differentiation when you think about the way that you're organizing classrooms or making certain that students have choice, how they are monitoring the work that they're doing as you're looking at independence. So all those things that go along with the Montessori way. In terms of this year, and I think that question is specific to high schools, and we shared this last night as well on the presentation that was done during the board meeting, but the recommendation this year in terms of going through the budgeting process that came in from the team was that Montessori paras at the high school level were not a part of the allocation model. They were not included in the formula, and so therefore, in doing the follow-up and the work with that, those positions were cut at that time. This is all very new as of last night because the information has not been shared with the schools yet, because it was important to make sure that we had the support of the board and that we knew the alignment that the board was taking, because there's been a lot of questions around just the vacancies for paras and how we're filling those vacancies. So in asking questions, it was determined that we've really had paras in our Montessori high schools since the inception of Montessori in our district. And so we want to make sure that moving forward, the team continues to make them a part of the formula. And we're understanding from our finance team, they've never been a part of the formula, but it looks like someone continued to add them to the school. So they actually should be there. There are 6 at each school, and those positions will remain at those schools. But you're getting that information before the schools have, as I just shared.
Okay. The next question comes from Holly Fritz, and you may not have the answer because it might have been well before your time, but why was the tuition requirement done away with for out-of-district kids if schools are struggling, for instance, Walnut Hills High School?
This is the first question that I've ever gotten about tuition for our public school programs. The only question around tuition that's ever been discussed with me, and that was a part of our finance committee, and it may have been a part of policy as well, but it was around summer school and summer scholars. And so students that were attending summer school at one point had to pay for summer school, but outside of that, no other commission or no other pay or tuition actually has been shared with me. So I'd have to do a little bit of research around that because that's not something that I know about.
Yep. Okay. I've made a note. We'll do some research too to help support that. This comes from Joe. Have there been talks about school routes for Metro, as it currently takes my kids 1.5, 2 hours to get to school in the mornings, which is an issue for the grade level of the child. But it's just talking about school routes for Metro, so maybe a little clarification for Metro between Yellow Bus and Metro.
I think that's really important that we do the contact for Metro directly, because one of the examples that we received on that earlier was it was determined that there was a different stop that the family could actually take and a different bus. So I don't know if that's a part of the issue or if the issue is truly the Metro route is just very different. So I would say definitely you can send us an email on it, and we will definitely forward that to Metro so that they can follow up with you. There were some students in our feedback sessions that we did with students around transportation, which we shared that last night. They also talked about some of the routes taking longer on Metro. So we wanted to dig in a little bit around that, but we do need to start with Metro on that because they do set up their routes.
All right, this is a question from Marquita Pizarro. It says, I believe there's a systematic trend of minorities transferring out of Kilgore. Does the board help with making an audit observation of data to conclude if this is true? The board question, but may provide some light to it.
Yeah, so one of the questions that came up last night, and I know that we don't respond to public comment for the most part when they come up, but there was a question last night that was very similar to this that was about an equity audit. And so I will share that is really one of the next areas that we're moving into. The board has been very forward with putting into place anti-racism policies as well as equity policies. However, there has not been the next steps in terms of implementation around those, and to really hyphen what it is that you're saying is that it is important that we start with audits. So we have our chief of staff, who has quite a bit of experience in working with equity. That's a body of work that he is overseeing. We're looking at a proposal right now for really how we're doing that equity work and beginning to do the audits across the district, because that's where it starts. Having led this work previously around and starting with an audit, it is more than just going to one individual school. It's really looking collectively at all of the schools. So the question is very relevant. When there is an issue that is one that is of concern, we do follow up with that question or with the issue. We have them contact and direct to generally our chief of schools for the K-8 schools and our chief of high school transformation for the high schools. Many times, if there's actually a claim, we work with our general counsel, who actually oversees that process for us as well. And most recently, at the board meeting last night, I'm not sure, I don't think that it was one that that the board did movement on in terms of voting, but it was one that was on the agenda for review. It was on the policy committee last Friday, but it was around a Title IX policy as well. So we're very engaged in terms of what that work looks like. And I do think in the short term, we'll begin to see more work around really how we're beginning to do more around equity and the analysis of equity in the district.
One of the things I just told Rob, and I gave him the link to last night's board meeting, so we can share that YouTube link for those who couldn't attend last night. There's some good discussion that might support some of the, further, support some of the questions they have. And I also asked him to post the cow session that was in February that provided a little bit more about the walnut questions that the board had requested, or the information. So I think those are two good links for folks on this call that might want to listen to.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Elise F. What can you share regarding summer plans to offer student advancement opportunities for students who are interested and maybe not in need of credit recovery? What suggestions do you have?
Right. So at this point, in terms of overall district, ultimately, we're looking to do acceleration during the summer. This year, we are focusing primarily on recovery. There has been a proposal or request that's been done that's just really a historical request for work that's happened at Walnut that we are honoring in terms of what that looks like for that population. And so we'll continue to do that this year. And then moving forward, we have, and I'm thinking about the policies that came through last night. So I think last night promotion retention was voted on by the board. And then the next policy that was going to be reviewed last night is extended learning opportunities, which is where any of our summer learning opportunities would come up, and acceleration is a part of that policy. So if you look at the committee meeting for policy from Friday, you're able to look at the language that's being proposed to the board for that policy, or the language that the policy committee is proposing to the board for that policy.
Okay, so I'm looking for my next question here. Going back down, so like I said, I told everybody at the beginning we're trying to be equitable and ask those ask the question first. So, what are athletes and marching bands expected to do if no activities or camps at campuses? So I'm not sure if this is in terms of one specific school, but what are athletes and marching bands expected to do this summer?
Yeah, so the first time I saw that kind of surprised me a bit. So one of the things that we are doing with principals on Thursday, we have our monthly principals meeting on Thursday. We're clarifying the process for them because there has not been a change to student activities during the summer. The change or the update has been that there does need to be building utilization that's been put in so that we actually know that individuals are in the building. So, summer is, being a person that was very active during the summer at school and as a principal and principal leader. That's a time that you have students that are at school that are doing additional activities for whether it's athletics, whether it's summer band, whether it's soccer camp, those are times that happens during the summer. So it's just important that the process is clear. I don't know where that misinformation came from, but I'm glad that it was raised so that it does become something that we can clarify. It was raised in the email that I received from from some of the Walnut families starting on Sunday, and that's where I was alerted because I did not know that information was out there. So thank you for sharing.
Okay. Our next question here is, and again, this is bringing a little bit of clarity maybe around the relationship between CPD and CPS. But it says, what are you planning to do to combat SRO in schools? So just to make sure provide clarity on what their support level is and how an arrest might possibly occur at a school.
Yeah, so SROs are assigned to schools in Cincinnati from CPD. They're employees of CPD, and they support really all the schools in the city, not just the schools that are in CPS. SROs become involved when there is an issue with breaking of the law. So SROs are not responsible for code of conduct violations or code of conduct issues. They only have involvement when it becomes something that is egregious enough that it does break the law. And it becomes their responsibility to determine if an arrest is going to occur. I will share that our SROs have been trained. These are individuals that want to work in school buildings. And so they have to apply to become an SRO. They're not just placed as SROs. So they have to say, I want to be a school resource officer. They are, parents, they're graduates of the district, and they have a huge commitment to our students. Many of them are also working with our students even during the summer, in summer activities as well. And so if there is an opportunity to de-escalate a situation so that it doesn't just go to arrest, the SROs do that as well. So in terms of the involvement, we continue to work with the SROs to have interaction with them, but they are providing support to the school, and that support is coming from CPD.
Okay. Got a couple of questions from a parent, and I think some of the questions are getting a little bit student record specific. So I just want to remind everybody in the audience we're not here to answer very specific student record information. Some of the questions are getting into that arena. We'll definitely take your contact information and we'll definitely give it to the right person, or whether it's the board or the superintendent's office, to respond accordingly. We might not be asking these questions. I just want to make the audience understand if it's student record related, very specific, those are things that we cannot share with the public. It's federal law, so for the audience. So the next question is, well, it's kind of a little bit more of a confirmation back on the. Are you able to confirm that you are saying pairs in the high school Montessori will remain to be as part of the budget? But I think maybe some clarity on the budget process and where we currently are, and when the clarity might be a little bit more forthcoming between you and the board. I don't know if that provides.
Sure. So I think when you share the link from the meeting last night, and you may want to share the presentation as well. And it is difficult if it's not a conversation that you've been involved in along the way. It is difficult to pick up from where we were last night and have the conversation from that point. So I do understand that there may be questions after looking at the presentation. So on the third slide of the CFT concerns that were raised, one of them was about the paras at the Montessori high schools, and those are being reinstated. That was given support by the board last night. The schools, as I shared, you're hearing this information first because the schools will not get the updated information until Thursday as we are working through the processes. So the Montessori pairs, there's 6 at each of the schools, and all 6 of them are being reinstated. So yes, I am confirming that I just said that. So Mark, I know that you are recording, so I think that you have that information as well.
Yep. This one is about mental health support in the school. This person says, what are the district's current plans to address the fact that the number of mental health support staff is maybe below the recommended quantities for a district of this size? So maybe at least get a little clarity on our current mental health support at the school, and possibly where we want to go in the future. But we'll go from there.
Right. So I think that one, from a place of just clarity, the district is addressing mental health in a couple of different places. So First, we have our school-based mental health clinics that are at the school, and most of the work that's done in the school-based health clinics, I think I said mental health clinics, I'm sorry, the school-based health clinics, most of the work that's done in our school-based health clinics is around physical health. But if there is a need, there is an opportunity to engage in terms of that process. Then we have a social worker, at least one social worker in all of our schools. And that's been an improvement. This work started several years ago. We started with about 15 social workers, and from that time, we've grown from 15 social workers to the number that we have now. We are recommending even more as we move into this school year as well. And so social workers are also a line of defense when it comes to mental health and mental health support, and that's at the Tier 1 and Tier 2 level. And in some instances, depending on the social worker and the kind of experience that the social worker has, they do have an opportunity to do Tier 3 experiences as well. So that means whether they're doing a whole group activity, whether they're doing a small group activity with students, or whether they're doing some individual one-on-one time. Collectively, our district has gone to a collaborative approach where we work with an organization, that Mindpiece, that has taken mental health providers from around the city, brought them together in a conglomerate, and those mental health providers are assigned to the schools in our district. The initial vision for that from the district, when the outsourcing was done in terms of mental health, the initial response from the district was that there would be a mental health provider on staff at each school. And I think with some of the challenges just in staffing and there being such a high need for mental health support right now, that's been a challenge at some of the schools. So for those schools, they are able to do the referrals at the school, but they then have to go to the facility to actually get the mental health support. So it definitely is an area that we're focused on. Our school counselors are also focus on social emotional learning. We are looking to continue that into next year, to make sure that also becomes a part of the work that we're doing around restoration, really that whole PBIS plan, and that is all inclusive, where you're talking about restoration, social emotional learning, character development, and all of those things in one.
We just had a question that said, I saw the addition of CEO to your title and was wondering, what is the difference between the two titles, CEO and?
I didn't understand your question.
I'm sorry. It says, I saw the addition of CEO to your title. I recognized that you had CEO part of your title and wanted to understand what the difference is between a CEO and a superintendent.
It's the same. So the CEO, the superintendent is the chief executive officer for the school district.
Okay.
So that's why I said superintendent and CEO versus and/or.
Yep. Totally get it. So the next question is a little bit more follow-up, but it said, thank you for, it's nice to hear summer opportunities at Walnut will option. When you say that population, do you mean any student with acceleration interest will be allowed to take classes at Walnut? Or are you simply allowing these options for students in the Walnut population? So, I mean, I think there might be additional clarity that is needed there, or future clarity that might be forthcoming.
Yeah, so what I said was that this actually was brought up to me by Walnut, by the principal at Walnut. And he shared the process that they've used for select courses that they have at Walnut for students to be able to take those courses. And the question was around whether or not students would still be able to do that. And he's given us those courses and the number of students that he's expecting or anticipating for those courses. So right now it has been specific to the students that are at Walnut in those specific courses. But as we move into next year, we are looking to expand opportunities for students to do extended learning, acceleration as well.
Got it. Thank you. This next one's a little bit more about our partnership and some of the vendors that we work with. And this was in relation to social emotional learning or presentations. They were asking if there's an opportunity for observations or audits to be on these partners by third-party companies, and who would manage that process if they decide to do it.
So it's not necessarily something that we have looked at this point in terms of a third party. We are doing a lot of work around just specific auditing. and looking at how we are balancing the return on investment from the deliverables that were placed as a part of the contract. And so that is a new process for the district. That's not something that the district has really focused on much before. So it's a new learning for us. I think that as we continue to move forward and we're looking at where we are with our partnerships and doing the analysis, we'll continue to share that information with the board. And if we feel that there's a need to have someone outside of the district to do that, I think that that's something that we would definitely discuss with the board.
The next question is, how will mental health support staffing be impacted by proposed budget cuts? I think we're certainly still in that window of making some decisions, but or at least working with the board. So I'm not quite sure if we can even answer that question at this point in time, but maybe at least understand how the process goes to evaluating all of our mental health supports in our schools.
Right. So I think the mental health supports is very broad. So I'll just use that based on the two examples that I just gave. And one would be social workers, and the other is the mental health providers that are in schools that are partnered through MindPeace. Right now, the recommendation is that we are increasing social workers across the district. We are increasing school counselors across the district. I did not mention them in the last group. We're increasing school counselors across the district. And we anticipate that we'll be maintaining mental health services. The goal is to make sure that we're able to get back to the mental health expectations and the goals that were set up by the district to start with, around having the providers that are assigned at the school site so students can actually get services at the school.
We've been doing rapid fire today, so I'm trying to go through them to make sure I apologize, because I'm scrolling through to make sure that I've asked all the questions that come up just recently. I think one question was, do we I can't even talk right now. An ombudsman? Do we have an official ombudsman for the district?
We don't have an.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's just that it isn't clear who the contact person is, so at least provide some clarity.
Yeah, so we don't have an official ombudsman for the district. What we do have is a parent care center that you're able to call into and give initial concerns, and then those are routed to the individuals that are responsible for doing the follow-up. As we think through general issues that happen at a school site, usually, as I shared just a moment ago, usually those ultimately are addressed through the directors of school leadership at the school, and those are the principal supervisors, if you will. That would be one way to describe them. And then ultimately the chief of schools for our K-8 schools and the chief of high school transformation for our high schools. And I said K-8 schools. Some of the schools are K-8, some are not, but the chief of schools primarily works with all of our schools that are elementary schools, and then our high schools is the chief of high school transformation.
Got it. The next question is, why do you think there is a lack of students of color taking College Credit Plus classes? Is this something that you will be pushing for next year?
Yeah, so I think that and I'm trying to think about most recently when we had this discussion in a recent board conversation. Usually I can have them top of mind, but recently we discussed this because this is a priority for the board as well. We want to make certain that we are doing several things with our students of color. Minority students, our Black students specifically as well. And one of them is an increase of students in acceleration coursework. We want to make sure that we are closing the achievement gaps that currently exist with the students, and we want to see a decline in the discipline. So if you go to our board approved goals and guardrails, you will see those things as a part of that. So it is something that is of concern. I think that it's a greater conversation than just a conversation around the CCP courses, because we also want to make sure that as we think of continuum, we have a continuum of courses leading up to those College Credit Plus programs where our students have been able to take accelerated coursework so they're prepared to go into one of the college credit programs before they graduate from high school. Also have a lot of interest if you watch our committee meetings around ad hoc meetings. We did back in, it may have been October or November at the ad hoc committee meeting. We shared our initial program audit where we went through each school and did audits for the programs that are identified for the school and what we see in actuality happening in the school, and then recommendations as we're looking to move forward. So we did that in an ad hoc and also in a committee meeting, as well, a regular business meeting as well. And the opportunity to offer a true early college program is something that we're very interested in as an option for the students. And as I see early college, and my experiences with early college really for about the last 20 years has been that students are able to get an AA or an AS degree when they graduate. So I think the district has done a great job of making sure that there is a focus and an increase on College Credit Plus programs within our schools and teachers that are credentialed to do those classes. There's been an increase in the number of students, and the goal has been to get the students at least 12 semester hours, 12 credit hours, so that they're ready for that first semester. They're able to go through the first semester as a college student. And so this is really taking it to the next level. So our colleges and universities in the area have really shown interest in that. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to work in alignment with the board and share something soon around next steps around that.
And I'm not sure if we had some latecomers come on late, but there was a number of folks interested in Walnut. And as we said at the beginning, and make sure Rob posts the COW meeting as well as the YouTube meeting from last night's board, thing that there was, as far as lowering the scores, that was not occurring. The question about Schedule E funding. So again, I really want to make sure folks have those links, Rob, because I think that they can hear both the superintendent and the board have the exchange about some of the concerns that might still be continuing either on social media, but lowering of scores is not occurring. So these were questions that were requested by our board and provided just the information. Just to reiterate, superintendent, to let them know these things have not happened.
I also think it's important that we know where this BePresent session is where families that are coming on now are able to view it, because some of the questions that they may have may be maybe I've answered earlier as a part of this session, but it gives them the opportunity to hear it from me directly if they so choose.
Rob, I think you were going to join in real quick there, and I apologize.
I was, yes, no, that's okay. If they're looking for what we posted, if they click on the event chat, they'll find the links there, and this will also be on YouTube as soon as we're finished with this as well on our CPS YouTube page. So you'll be able to immediately get access to this video again if you've come in late.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, I think I have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay, let me go take a peek here. One was about, is there any kind of support for the Iowa test at the elementary level?
So that is a great question. And that's a question that's come up a few different times. I think we're exploring with our testing team. Iowa is a test that we actually get from another organization. And we're exploring with our testing team what may be the options that might be best in terms of practice. We have had some individuals that have contacted the company directly, but we do want to be able to offer that and make that available to our elementary school families. So that's something that I don't have an answer for right now, but I do believe that before it's time for our students to take the assessment in the fall, that we will have at least some level of entry level practice activities that students can do around the Iowa.
Karen had a question about when if they're submitting a bullying or harassing form, and who can they follow up with if they haven't heard from anybody recently, or that's Because when you've submitted a bullying harassment claim but haven't heard anything, what are the next steps a parent should take?
Great question. So and my assumption for that, Mr. Sherwood, would be that was done on the bully button.
I would believe so, but I can also ask the parent if they want to direct message us their contact information.
Right, because for information that goes in to any of the information that's on the bully button, it goes to our team immediately, and usually there is the expectation that there is the follow-up within 24 hours from that, and that will be, of course, 24 school hours, but we do have our team members that often work at all times to try to make sure that those follow-ups are happening. So this is the second one today. that I have heard about that. Someone emailed me earlier about that. I don't know if this is the same or not, but in terms of follow-up, you could start with our parent care, our customer care, in terms of seeing what's next. The school is a location as well. And if you want to email me directly, you can feel free to do that, and we will share it with our Positive School Culture team, because they're the ones that do the initial follow-up when it's through the bully button.
This one's more of a statement. Just said, yes, really appreciate you taking the time to connect with parents and hear our concerns. We're glad our high schoolers at Clark will continue with the same level of support.
Thank you very much.
Heart emoji.
Thank you.
I have one last question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sherwood. One more question, one more statement, real quick for the last parent, before I do this last question. I do think it's important, if that question is being asked, that means that that information is not on our website. So let's make sure that we have, that we follow up with the team so that we have who to contact on the website, because that's a great question. And like I said, now this is the second time that I've gotten that question today. So we do want to make sure that it's forward facing for how our families can get a response.
Got it. We'll definitely follow up.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that's pretty much it. One thing we had clarity, they wanted to just make sure that they understood that the Summer Scholars application is by April 3rd. Somebody asked if it was April 10th, or they heard April 10th. I want to be clear, it was April 3rd.
Actually, remember we extended it to the 10th.
Well, then that's my apologies. Then I'll make sure that everything is updated.
Yes.
April 10th.
Right. So now that you said that, make sure that it's on all of our sites, because I know
that's what we're going to do right now.
Okay.
Well, I believe that's all the questions that we have today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for taking the time to join in with us today and for being present in this session. Thank you for your questions. A part of this gives me the opportunity and gives you the opportunity to answer questions very, very directly. There is a survey that you can take at the end of this session. So we would ask that you take just a couple of minutes to take the survey, because we do use the survey to help frame the work that we're doing and what we're looking at doing next. So again, thank you so much. And thank you for entrusting your child or your children to us. I am CPS, you are CPS, we are CPS. So have a nice afternoon.